Hello and welcome to Bitch That's My Kind of Worship, a podcast by and for radical hotties the world over. My name is Lucy DK, and I'm an artist and writer obsessed with building the new world. This podcast is here to guide my fellow revolutionaries as we step into a collective healing journey that centers truth, justice, and returning to our limitless power. I will share practices, guidance, and conversations to keep your internal fires lit so you can let the old world crumble without fear and step into creating the future you were born for. It is our duty to fight for our freedom, and it is our duty to win. Hey hotties! Today what I felt really cool to share was a practice in truth-telling and a transmission on how to tell the truth, which I think is often misunderstood because people really associate truth-telling with morality. But I really think that truth-telling is much less about morality and much more about courage, because to tell the truth, to tell your truth, is to know yourself deeply, intimately, on the deepest subconscious levels that you can imagine. And so truth-telling is actually something we often in our culture have to learn, have to be initiated into, because we live in a culture of lies and we live in a culture of falseness, and we live in a culture where these things are rewarded. Actually, performance is rewarded. And if we are people who feel called into living a path of truth and living a life that feels deeply truthful to us, feeling like we're living our true life, the life we were destined for, then we have to get really good at telling the truth, most importantly to ourselves. And truth-telling is often also seen as something that is more about the sharing of truth or the externalization of it. You know, how are you showing up with other people? Are you being truthful with other people? Are you telling the truth about yourself to other people? But I really think the most important core part of truth-telling is telling the truth to yourself, and it's harder than it sounds. So that's why we're gonna learn how to do it today. So I feel really excited about this because I think truth-telling is one of my gifts, and it's something that has been seeded in me since I was very young. Is how can I externalize my truth in a way that allows me to look at myself and know myself and deeply come into communion with all that I am. And it's something I think we're all capable of, and something I believe a lot of us are deeply called to. And the more of us who can come into alignment with our truth, the more we actually shift our culture into a culture of truth and into a culture of justice, because truth and justice really go together. And so I think the first thing that it's really, really important to come to terms with when it comes to truth is that your truth is so deep, deeper than you can even believe, and you will likely have a lot of stories that protect you from what your truth would demand of you. Because the thing about truth is it's not easy. It's not a fantasy. It's not like a nice thing. It's not like, oh, like this is how I feel and etc., etc. It's essentially saying these are all the things I would have to undo or change or adjust in my life to truly be living my truth. And the longer that we have often been severed from our truth or suppressed our truth or had our truth hidden from us, the more courage it takes to actually connect to our truth. Because somewhere within us, there is a consciousness that, oh my gosh, if I actually face this thing, or if I actually look at this desire, or if I actually come into connection with this piece of me that I've kind of turned off or toned down or whatever it is, then that is going to actually necessitate a lot of shifts in my life, and I'm not sure I'm ready or willing to do that. And I'm not sure that that is going to feel comfortable for me. And so I would rather actually live a lie. I would actually rather live in performance. Even if I'm saying on the surface, right, like, oh, I want to be authentic, or I want to heal, or there's like a level of authenticity that we can muster, but we know somewhere deep inside of us that there's actually a deeper truth that we're not ready to come into connection with yet, because that truth just would be too big and too scary and all of those things. And it's okay to notice that, and it's okay to say, okay, I know there are deeper layers, and I know I need to build my capacity to reach that truth. So I think the first thing and the first step of this is actually acknowledging to ourselves, wow, I might not be living in my full truth right now. Like, I might not be living in my full authenticity. I might not be living in my full alignment. And I'm comfortable with that. And I'm also committed to going deeper into what that truth could be for me. And I'm prepared to take time with it. I'm prepared to expand my capacity, but I can see that. I can see that I'm not fully in my truth yet. I think that acceptance is really important. But then I feel like the next piece that actually gets me so excited is that you can allow yourself to be your own truth keeper. And so what I mean by this is that often it feels like, in order to build up the courage to tell the truth, I have to tell everyone. Like, I have to, publish the scariest essay on my deepest shadows and fears, or I have to speak up in a meeting of people who I'm scared of and say what I actually think. Or it feels like that to become a truth teller, we have to jump to that big step straight away before we feel ready for it. And actually, I think the place to start with truth is telling the truth to yourself and being your own truth keeper. Because if there's one person in this world that you can trust, it's yourself. And it's knowing that building that trust with yourself, that self-trust, is the most important place to start. Because if you can tell the truth to yourself, you're going to start to build the capacity to actually show up in the world with truth. But actually, the first step is beginning within. And so to do this, the best way is to find a practice of truth telling that feels really right to you. And for me, it's writing, because I love to write, and that has always been the way I come to understand myself and know myself better. And I think with writing, it's really beautiful because you can tell your secrets and know that they're never going to be necessarily read by anybody else, right? Unless you choose to share them. And so you can explore things that you don't even know if they're true. And I think this is a really important part too. Sometimes I feel like in my early days of writing, I would almost be scared to put something down because I'm like, but do I actually feel this or think this? Or this seems so bad or so shameful, or, and because of that, I was like, I can't even put it on a page. And one of my favorite quotes on this is from one of my favorite writers and poets, Yasa Daily Ward. And she writes, if you're terrified to write it, that's a good sign. It's the truth when you're terrified, or you're saying the truth when you're terrified, or something to that effect. And those words were always so powerful to me, because it's true. Like, if you have that deep, sudden fear come up of, oh my God, like, I can't say this, or I can't write this down, or like, this is too, then that's where you need to go. There's something there. There's something that's creating that. And when you actually look at that truth square on, whether you've written it down on the page, whether you say it to yourself in the mirror, whether you put it in a piece of creative expression, or merely pray about it, or meditate on it, or whatever it is, you allow yourself to actually recalibrate to the fact that you're somebody who is prepared to explore and experiment with truth. The truth is not static, nor is it something that once said cannot be shifted or changed. Truth to me is very fluid. Truth is ever changing. Truth is moving. And we have this culture where we really believe that truth is about morality and black and white, and there's no in between, and it's either true or it's not true. And we use this culture to punish people, if they're not speaking what we think is the truth, or to shame different perspectives, or to make certain things seem crazy and certain things seem like fact, right? And so we're in this culture where we're also very suspicious and not sure if people are telling us the truth, and the culture of fake news, and this idea of like, can you trust the source or whatever? But really, your source is source. It is the universal energy. It is the connection with spirit. It is your connection with yourself. And so if you can get to a place where you're prepared to play around in the waters of that truth and start to pick apart all the things that that truth brings up in you, then you're starting to win. You're starting to really be brave and be courageous. And a good way to play with truth is to really see it as a journey. That's how I see it when I begin an essay. From the start to the end, I know I'm going to arrive somewhere very different. And that's why through the practice of writing, I've built that trust and that courage, because even if I start and I'm starting to write something that fills me with a lot of shame and I'm like, I'll never share this anywhere because I'm so afraid, and what does this mean about me, and why am I feeling like this? But by the end of the essay, again, the feeling has been alchemized and I've been able to understand where it's actually coming from, like what it does mean for me, what meaning it does carry. And usually I've landed somewhere that is filled with a lot of light and where I actually feel a lot of peace and acceptance and courage, maybe even courage enough to share that whole journey of truth exploration that I've just been on, right? And so I think when we see truth as an exploration rather than a final place to land, we give ourselves a lot more grace to actually play with it and explore with it and allow it to shift and be fluid and change, which is really, really important. So I think as part of that truth-telling journey, what we also have to trust is that truth is something that can be revealed to us, and we can ask for it to be revealed, and we have the power to call in more truth in our lives. And a big part of this is accepting that often, even when we say we want to know something, even when we say we want an answer, often we don't, because it will mean that we have to shift, we have to change, we have to transform, we have to give something up, we have to sacrifice something, it feels like. And so truth is something that comes with surrender. But what we are actually able to do is really sit with the fact that we want more truth in our lives, and really sit with the fact that we want the truth to be revealed. A good example of this is, say you're in a relationship with somebody that you really like and you're just dating them and it started and you have this big crush, and you know the crush part of you is like, oh my gosh, like I want to be with this person, like they seem so amazing. But your prayer in that moment should not be, God, let me be with this person forever. Your prayer should be, God, like reveal what this relationship is meant to be in my life. You know, God, like bring me deeper into this relationship if it's the right place for me to be, if it will reveal more of my truth, more of my light, if it will lead me to the life I'm supposed to live, if it will lead me to my destiny, my purpose. You know, and the prayer should equally be, if it's not going to be that, Lord, if it's not that, like lead me away, like release me from it, you know? And so I think often when we pray for truth, it's the same thing, where we have to truly pray for truth to be revealed, knowing that the truth will never necessarily be what we want. And sometimes it is exactly what we want, right? So I shouldn't say never, but the truth is often what we need. And that's why it also demands a lot of courage, because to truly pray for truth is to truly pray for truth to be revealed, knowing that truth is not necessarily the illusion that you have in your mind. It's not necessarily the fantasy. It's not necessarily what will make you the most comfortable. It's not necessarily what will bring you the most immediate convenience and comfort. But what you can rest in is knowing that truth will always bring you the deepest fulfillment, the deepest love of the eternal kind, the deepest satisfaction on a spiritual level. And so that is why when we deepen our connection to spirit, we build our courage to actually be able to pray for and accept truth into our lives, because no longer are we so holding on to the way that our lives have been so far and the comfort of performance and illusion. We actually know that what will bring us the deeper satisfaction is the deeper truth. And we know also that when we ask for truth to be revealed, we'll be prepared for that truth to be revealed. So if we're in a place where we're not actually really ready for that truth and God or source or the universe can see we're not ready for that truth yet, like, you know, she's praying for this, but like ultimately what we're seeing her do and running around with this like chaos and drama in the world, we know that she's not really ready for the truth to be revealed. And so we see her heart, we see her purity, we see that she's praying for truth. We see that she really wants that. She has an aspiration for that. She has a desire for that. And so then what we'll do as the universe, as source, is we'll give her the journey within that life, within that human realm, to be able to be ready for the truth to be revealed. We'll show her what she needs to know to be able to see that truth. Like right now, her perspective is quite limited, right? Like she can only see based on her own experience, her own life, what has happened to this point. But what we really want is to expand her perspective, to open her eyes a little more, to make her braver, to give her the courage to step deeper into that journey. And so we're going to send her on little rides, little goose chases, little tests in her immediate world, so that the illusions start to be shaken and that she can come into deeper truth and deeper alignment. And so if you're going through a period where it feels like a lot is being taken away from you, you can really rest assured that a lot of what is being removed is illusion. It's ways that you were performing. It's ways that you were seeing life as you thought it should be, as you thought as the ways that would make you comfortable. And the more tightly you hold on, the harder it's going to be. But the more you just keep saying to yourself, I am going to allow myself to come closer to truth. I'm going to allow truth to be revealed. Truth is being revealed in my life. That's a beautiful mantra to actually hold, is truth is being revealed in my life. Let truth be revealed. Truth is being revealed in my life. And so when we really move into that, we give ourselves the opportunity and the possibility to see beyond what we can currently see, and we create more space for the light of truth to really come in, because truth is light and truth is beautiful. And so when we actually sit in the energy of truth and the feeling of truth, we know it when we feel it, right? It's the example of this would be, when you speak to somebody and you just immediately resonate and you know that what they're telling you comes from a deep place in their heart, and you just feel that. Like you have no way to actually be able to validate, okay, is this story they're telling me actually true? Like you weren't there, like you didn't see it, but they speak it to you and you know, right? You feel the truth. Versus when somebody is telling you a story about something and you don't feel a resonance, you actually feel a resistance. You feel a sense of, this person wants something from me. Maybe they're trying to sell you something. Maybe they just want you to think that they're cool or nice, but you just feel that there's a performance going on. And you're not even necessarily judging it, right? You might be like, okay, this person is on their own thing, whatever. But you just feel, okay, I'm not going to invest my money with this person, or I'm not going to really trust this person. I'm not going to, fully go all in with whatever event they want me to do with them, because you just feel that even though they're saying this, and again, I have no way to validate, what they're saying to me could be true. I don't know, I have no fact check, but my fact check is my intuition, right? And I feel that this is false. And so in that same way, the energy of truth is always light. And so in our own lives, when we're calling in truth, we know that eventually we will be called in to really sit with that pure light, with that pure energy. And so when things are being shifted and it feels really hard, what we can really gravitate towards is what feels really light and what feels really beautiful and what is calling us deeper. And that is actually what gives us the courage to go deeper as well. Because when we're not connected to spirit, it just seems like, oh, all of these bad things are happening. But when we're connected to our intuition, when we're connected to spirit, there's always a spark. There's always a light leading us on. There's always that feeling of, okay, but if I go this way, or if I trust this, that there is light there. And we have to be courageous enough often to go through the fire to arrive there. And when we arrive, we are bathed in it. We're absolutely lifted by it. We're immersed in it, and it's beautiful. So there's always that promise of that truth. I think something that is really beautiful about that journey of truth is that when we've sat in that light, we want to share it, because the light is something that we know can bring other people to that same feeling of freedom that we feel. It's the same thing if you've experienced shame around something in life, or if you've been shamed by the culture or your family or whatever for something, And then you go on your own journey of alchemizing that feeling of shame and actually returning to a feeling of purity and love and freedom. Once you've gone through that journey, you're like, wait, I want these other people to know that they don't have to be ashamed for this. Like, I think a good example of this is like sex positivity for women, where I feel like there was a period, and definitely when I was growing up, I grew up in a Catholic school and all of this. So there was so much shame around sexuality, and what it meant to be like a sexual being was just so shut down. And then I feel like there was almost like this era of like liberation among my female friends where people were starting to realize like, oh, wait, like I'm allowed to have a connection with my body. I'm allowed to experience pleasure in sex. I'm allowed to speak about that. I'm allowed to talk about that. Like I'm allowed to explore that, right? And go on that journey. And so I feel like there's a real light that comes when we're actually able to speak about these things. And maybe when you look back and you're like, oh, well, when I was 15, I would not have been able to share this truth because I wasn't connected to it and I wasn't aligned to it. And then maybe when you're like in your early 20s and you've gone in that journey and you're deep in it, your light is like beaming out of you and you're just wanting to share, like, guys, like that is pleasure, like that is, and so you start speaking and you start sharing because it comes naturally. And you find that courage through that own journey that you've been on of healing that and alchemizing that, and also through the community of other people sharing their truth. Like you'll maybe see people a bit ahead of you. Maybe with that, it would be like women in their 30s then speaking about that whole journey, and you start getting really excited and you're like, wait, like she's liberated, like she's saying these things, like she believes them and she has full conviction. And that starts activating you in your life because you've heard this woman speak. You're like, wait, like I can actually do that. Like I can have that relationship to my body, or I can look for pleasure in those places, or I can get a sex toy and not be really scared about it or feel bad about it, right? And so we start to see that ripple effect and we start to become it too, because the more we hear people speak that truth, the more we start absorbing that truth, and the more we start to feel the courage and feel ready to share. And so I think the thing about sharing is that feeling of allow the timing to be right, allow yourself to be ready, allow that feeling to be there. And I think that's really important because there are some things that are really sensitive and that need to be something that you meet yourself with first. A good example is in the first episode of this podcast, even I share my story and how I stepped into a revolutionary healing journey. And a big catalyst for that was being raped, was my sexual assault that happened when I was 22 in New York, right? And so what is really interesting to me is that actually 2 times I almost shared that before. I'd actually like recorded different episodes. I did like a Substack transmission where I'd talked about sharing as survival and the importance of it, but I never put it out. And the same when I'd recorded maybe a few months ago, the first episode of the podcast, but it didn't feel right. It didn't feel aligned and I just wasn't ready yet. And also the other pieces of the podcast hadn't come together, whatever. So this time I re-recorded and it was so easy. It flowed so well. And it was just fully settled and embodied in my body to speak of that, right? And I think we have to know ourselves and know what we're embodied in and know what we're ready to be visible in, and like where that is actually a feeling of comfort and enlightenment for us and that fills us with more power to share, rather than something that is still a really open, raw wound that isn't actually ready to be, put in a spotlight yet or have people look at it. Like sometimes we actually need that to be something that's sacred and like within ourselves. And I think it's really good to be in touch with that. So that's something I would say there. But then on the flip side of that, something that is really important is that sharing will always still take courage. And this is something that is so clear to me that often when people come up to me, when they've seen work that I've shared online, they always say like, wow, like you're so brave. Like I could never do that, or I could never speak about that, or X, Y, Z. And it's always the things that are most activating that people respond to, right? When like you put out something you've been so scared to share, and then everyone's like, wow, like this super inspired me. This was amazing. And that's because nobody's been brave enough to say it yet. Like, especially maybe in your community, someone has to go first. And the thing that I will say about this is I don't think there's ever a time when I'm sharing something that feels really edgy when I'm not scared. Like I will feel it in my nervous system. Like I will be afraid. Like I will have all of these visions and projections of like, oh my God, what this person would think or what this person would say or how this would seem to this person, right? I have all of that, but I still go ahead and post. And the reason why I do that and the reason why I can now do that is because I've built the capacity in my body to be able to hold that feeling and to feel whether it presents itself as cringe of like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Or whether it presents itself as shame of like, oh my gosh, like, will this mean that, people think badly of me? Or whether it's me shrinking and hiding from the male gaze of, oh my God, if I post this, like the crush I have will think I'm ugly, right? Like all of these things, they cycle through me, they don't disappear. But now I see them and I'm conscious of them and I feel them and I can alchemize them and I can know that the truth I'm sharing is so beautiful and important and generative, and I can go there, right? I can go to those places. And so I think when we come to sharing, which is such an ancient technology and it is survival and it is so important for us to speak power into our stories, it's knowing when we're ready to do that, where that can be held, where it can be received in those early stages, and then when we're ready to actually share in a wider way, share maybe outside of our friend group or outside of our bedroom, and really actually share as light, right? In the way that we know what we have to say is going to activate and free and liberate other people. So I think once you have a really beautiful truth-telling practice that starts with you, once you know how to tell the truth to yourself, once you know how to experiment with truth, and then once you know how to actually find the courage to start sharing that truth, what you'll see little by little is that truth starts pushing you into a more truthful life. Because the more truth you tell, the more truthful you become. And becoming truthful is a whole practice. It's a practice of embodiment. It's a practice of feeling into your life in the places where there are still performance, in the places where you are still holding on to outdated versions of what it means to be you. And so truth is a tool. Really, truth is a realignment. It is a direction. It is a navigation. It is a light. And truth is the thing that leads you on. It's the thing that leads you forward. So what I would love you to do right now, if you are somebody who is really called into the path of truth telling, and I think this is a really specific and crucial role for revolutionaries and revolutionaries on healing journeys, there are some of us who are really called to tell the truth. I think we're all called to tell the truth to ourselves and to move into an aligned, truthful life. So I think that's one part of it. But I think there are some of us who are really called to tell the truth, to stand in truth in a visible way. And we know this from our revolutionary lineages, right? Where speaking the truth, being the one to go first, speaking truth to power, even when your voice shakes, speaking truth in rooms where people would rather you were silent, that skill, that power, that force is a really important revolutionary role, a really important revolutionary skill. So if you're somebody who feels really resonant with that and who knows that's part of your story, who knows that's part of why you're here and why you've been incarnated, then I would like you to just take a moment to actually write something down. So if you have your phone, that's perfect. If you have a notebook, a journal, you can get that now. If you want to pause this and go get what you need and then come back, that's great. But essentially, what I want you to write down is one thing that you've been afraid to say out loud lately. And it could be something to do with shame. Shame is always a great indicator of where there is a truth that is not coming out yet, a truth that is buried. So maybe it's something that's been triggering shame for you lately, or maybe it's something you know you desire, but you have all these stories over why it's not possible or why you shouldn't desire it. You know, I'm talking things like maybe your truth is, I don't want to get a job. That's my truth right now. I don't want to get a job. I have all these conditionings and all these stories around why I need to get a job, I should get a job, I must get a job. But my soul, my truth right now is, I'm not going to get a job. I don't want to get a job. I will not get a job. Right? And that felt so shameful for me to say out loud, because it was a feeling of, I'm lazy. This will make me seem less intelligent, less successful. This will make me struggle. This will mean that I'm poor. This will make me depend on others. So many stories around why it's wrong for me to hold the truth of, I do not want to get a job. So whatever it is for you, I just want you to write down whatever it is, that truth that's in your heart right now that feels really scary to say out loud. And it doesn't have to be an external thing. Like mine was external, but it might be that you feel a lot of grief, or you feel really sad, and you've been pretending like everything's good. It might be you have a sexual desire that you've not been expressing, that you feel like you can't express. Maybe a part of your gender that feels really suppressed or really misunderstood even by you. That was, I remember one of the essays I once wrote on Substack was called Femme Top Gold Dust. And it was like the scariest essay for me to ever publish, because in that essay, I'd spoken about how energetically I felt like I had a dick. At the time when I was writing that essay, that was just something I felt so strongly. And now in retrospect also I was feeling that so much because I was suppressing it. And it's so funny. And now, like, I was so scared to say that online. I was like, oh my God, my life is going to be over if I say this. It's crazy, right? The things that make us ashamed in the middle of the night. You can read that essay if you're interested where that landed. But yeah. So whatever it is, just write it down. Just write it down. And now I want you to write and reflect on what is the worst thing that could happen based on this truth. Like, what is your horror story of, if this truth is true, or if I share this truth and it's witnessed, it's seen, what would happen? Like, what am I so scared of? Like, what is so terrible about this thing? Why is this so shameful or so scary or so embarrassing to hold? Like, what is it about this truth that's like keeping me up? And yeah, you could just maybe be imagining how people would react to it, like how people in your life would see it. Like for me, when I wrote that essay, I was at the time dating like a super heterosexual, beautiful, traditional man with traditional values. I was like, well, he's not gonna appreciate this. LMAO. We love that. What is it? Like, what is the worst case scenario? Or with my job truth right now, it's like, well, is my life over? Am I never going to have the nice things I love and have loved being able to buy with a traditional salary? You know, will I never have money again? Will I be an embarrassing member of my family who cannot sustain herself or look after herself? You know, what would it mean? What does this paradigm shift, what does it mean? Just start to explore that. And if you need a little more time, just keep pausing. I'm just going to keep us moving on. But then for the final piece of this reflection, I want you to feel into and write down and luxuriate in what could be the best possible light in this truth. Like, what is this truth leading you towards? What is the spark of this truth? What is the possibility that is laced in this truth? What is the experiment it's calling you to? What is it asking of you, this truth? What does it want from you? What is it leading you to? What's it igniting within you? So for me with a job, it's like I'm all in on doing what I love. Like I'm all in on my gifts. I'm all in on decolonizing my life and looking for other ways to exist in this world than the ones I've been conditioned into. That's exciting. It's terrifying, right? It's so scary. I have no framework for it, but it's so exciting. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And for the energetic dick, at the time I felt so ashamed. I don't think I knew what the light was. But now I see so clearly. The light was my own power, my own liberation. And what's crazy is once I was able to express that feeling and let it out of its cage, all of those feelings came back into beautiful balance. And not only did it actually catalyze me shifting out of that relationship, which was a beautiful relationship, but it was just the time for me to shift out. As I shifted out, my whole life started to realign. And what was so beautiful is now I'm like, it was pushing me so deeply just into my courage, into my truth-telling, and into my commitment to living as myself beyond simply a role or the male gaze or what I thought I should be, but allowing myself to be completely in my truth, and then seeing how life realigned around me, right? And I think that's the thing, in the moment, you really think that truth is everything, that is the story, right? And it's really not. Because I look back and I'm like, that was just, in my life, it was a very temporary feeling, and it was beautiful, and it was energizing, and it was incredible. And I was making such a thing of it because it was something I didn't think I was allowed to feel, right? And so I was so suppressing and so shameful, and versus now I see the liberation of it, And that's what truth does. It just leads us to a next little piece of liberation. It leads us to where we're supposed to walk next. And so we're seeing it as the end, and we're seeing it as the whole story, but really it's just the light in the distance leading us to where we're supposed to walk, which is what's so beautiful. So I hope you found that little light. And now I just want you to close your eyes and maybe place your hand on your heart and just really meditate, focus on that light and how that light feels in your heart, how that light feels to know that you are lit up by truth, that you have truth within you, that even the scariest truth has light in it, that even the scariest truth is there to heal you, to help you, to bring you closer to love. You are a truth teller, and the truth will set you free. And when you commit to building your practice in truth telling, when you commit to telling yourself the truth and often, when you commit to sharing your truths when you feel ready and when you feel able to, when you commit to practicing that regularly, you commit to setting your people free, because the truth will set you free, and the truth will also set those around you free. And so when you commit to that practice, you can know that you're doing that in service. And it might feel really, really scary to do it for yourself, but can you do it for your people? Can you do it for your community? Can you do it for those you love? Can you do it in service? Can you be in service to truth? Because truth is a really, really powerful tool, and we need so much more truth in this world. And you, as a revolutionary, as an activist, you were born in the lineage of truth. You were born in the lineage of taking off illusion, of seeing through illusion, of removing illusion and asking truth to be revealed in yourself and in the world. So that can be our prayer together as we close. May more truth be revealed in us. May more truth be revealed in me. May more truth be revealed in the world. And as we go into our day, we can know that we are being prepared for that truth, that we are calling in that truth, and that truth will be revealed, and that we will be prepared to be ready to hold that truth when it comes. So I'm wishing you just the most beautiful day. I'm wishing you a life aligned with your truth. And I'm wishing you the light of your truth, and may the light of your truth bathe you and keep you and protect you and hold you. Amen. Love you. You've been listening to Bitch, That's My Kind of Worship, and you can follow Radical Hotties on Substack for more where that came from. See you next time.